Hello, my name's Simonaz, and welcome to another Simonaz Guide video. Today I've got your Combat Rogue gearing guide for Phase 4 of Wrath of Lich King Classic. That's the Icecrown Citadel raid. I'll go over all the best in slot items, as well as some alternatives, and all the information you need to know to make your rogue do as much damage as possible. As usual, I don't want to waste my time, I don't want to waste your time. Let's get right to it. This is your Combat Rogue best in slot list for Phase 4 of Wrath of Lich King. You've got your Havoc's Call from Lich King 25-man Heroic, your Deathbringer's Will that transforms you and makes you do a bunch of damage. Varisa's Dexterity from the previous phase remains best in slot. And luckily, you only want 2 pieces of your tier 10 armor set compared to most classes that are trying to compete on the tokens and get 4 pieces of it. So that's a nice thing for combat rogues. Here, I've got the drop locations for all of these different items. I figured that would be a nice thing to let you guys know. When it says End Wing bosses for the tier 10 pieces, that's Deathbringer Saurfang, Professor Putricide, Sindragosa, Blood Queen Lanethel, and the Lich King all drop these 25-man heroic sanctified tokens that let you upgrade to the highest item level of tier 10. Now, some people might think the tier 10 4-piece bonus is fun and cool, and while the simulators and spreadsheets suggest it's a little bit worse than running a 2-piece setup, it's not that much worse. And if you did want to run a 4-piece setup, this is the best way you would do it. Swap out the Ichthyrus' Sack of Wonder for the Sanctified Shadowblade Breastplate, the Gangrenous Leggings for tier 10 as well. You're also swapping the Frostbrood Sapphire Ring for the Band of the Bone Colossus, and that's to help you get more hit rating. Then also, a lot of the yellow sockets are being filled with hit rating gems. This is because this gear set by default is going to be over your critical strike cap, and to remedy that you need more hit rating. If you're not sure what your critical strike cap is or how to calculate it or what to do about it, I've got a video about that linked in the video description. This is something that's almost certainly going to come up for a combat rogue while you're gearing up in Icecrown Citadel. It's something to be aware of. You don't want to be pushing over your critical strike cap with your gear. Now, that's all the best in slot gear, all the perfect items that you could get, but you know, most players are not going to get full best in slot by the end of any phase. I'd like to spend most of the time in this video talking about what I would believe is a more realistic gear set to obtain for your combat rogue. This is what I would call realistic gear for a combat rogue, and it starts with a phase 4 best in slot list, and then it's changed in 2 ways. First, I take away all the 25-man heroic Lich King items and replace them with whatever is the second best that doesn't come from Lich King 25-man heroic. So we get rid of our Havoc's Call, put Blood Venom Blade on there, and we get rid of the Fallen Rush Crossbow and put Windrunner's Heartseeker on there. The second way this gear set is changed is I chose 4 pieces of 25-man Icecrown Citadel loot and replaced them with 10-man pieces or Badge of Frost pieces. And I chose the 4 pieces to be the ones that have the smallest impact on your damage output, the least detrimental swaps you could make. That's the Rhymetooth Pendant, the Vengeful Noose instead of the Australian Sutured Cinch, Taldaram's Soft Slippers instead of the Frostbitten Fur Boots, and Saurfang's Cold Forged Band instead of the Frostbrood Sapphire Ring. Now, unfortunately for combat, being even just 6 items away from perfect BiS is a reasonable hit on your DPS. This set is estimated to be about 3.3% worse than a perfect best in slot set. Those final pieces that help you get up to armor penetration cap and really push you to the next level are rather impactful. Another thing that's going to happen with combat rogues in phase 4 is that you're going to switch from gemming attack power gems in most of your slots to gemming armor penetration gems in most of your slots. And a very common question is, when do you switch to the armor penetration gems? Armor penetration is a stat that essentially scales the rest of your damage. So for armor penetration gem to be better than attack power gem, you have to have enough raw character power to make that percentage bonus be better than the raw bonus of attack power. I would say that generally, if you're starting with phase 3 best in slot, once you've got around 4 to 6 items worth of Icecrown Citadel gear, it's good to switch over to the armor penetration gems. So let's talk about your item priority as combat. Going into Icecrown Citadel, what are the most important items for you to get? And this is very simple. Deathbringer's Will. That's it. Deathbringer's Will has a very huge impact on your performance as a combat rogue and is by far the most important item for improving your performance in Icecrown Citadel. I would strongly recommend making sacrifices to your priority in just about every other gear slot if it can help you get higher priority on Deathbringer's Will. Now, realistically, this is not a helpful list, so let's look at a little bit more than that. So Deathbringer's Will is definitely the most important thing. Then I'd try to get your 2 pieces of tier armor. If you think you're in a guild that's going to be killing Heroic Lich King, prioritize that Havoc's Call. It's a decent piece. If you don't think you're going to be killing Heroic Lich King, go for one of the second best options that are still quite strong, the Blood Venom Blade, or you could go for a close quarters combat setup with Black Bruise and Lungbreaker. Finally, I'd look at Sindragosa's Cruel Claw, Tosk's Maximized Wrist Guards, and Aldriana's Gloves of Secrecy as some of the most impactful offset pieces and secondary pieces on your armor set. There are 2 crafted items this phase, the Bladeborn Leggings and the Footpads of Impending Death. The Bladeborn Leggings are actually your second best leggings in the whole phase for a combat rogue. I strongly recommend, if you're trying to play combat, you should get the Bladeborn Leggings crafted as soon as you can. They are very good. The Footpads of Impending Death, on the other hand, are likely an item you're simply not going to be able to equip. Oftentimes, problem with gearing combat is that you have too much expertise on your items, so finding another item with expertise on it can be hard to fit into your gear. However, if you can equip Footpads of Impending Death without pushing yourself over your expertise cap, then absolutely do it. They're great boots when you can utilize the expertise on them. So let's talk about some of those second best options that I'd mentioned in the realistic gear set for combat. First up is the necklace, with Sindragosa's Cruel Claw being the best option and the alternative from 10-man being the Rhyme Tooth Pendant. Now, technically, the non-heroic 25-man Sindragosa's Cruel Claw fits in between these. But if you're killing Sindragosa in heroic, you're never going to have a chance to see the normal mode loot. But maybe, you know, while you're progressing and killing it in normal mode, you might get a normal mode Cruel Claw that is better than the Rhyme Tooth Pendant from 10-man. For the belt, we have Vengeful Noose as a good alternative, and this item comes from spending Badge of Frost, which is quite nice, so it's a very reliable item to get. You should definitely prioritize spending your badges on your tier armor first, but once you've done that, if you don't have your Australian Sutured Cinch yet, I'd recommend Vengeful Noose being the next item you pick up with your badges. The boots are kind of silly because the 25-man item, the Frostbitten Fur Boots that are your best in slot, and your second best alternative, Taldaram's Soft Slippers, have actually the exact same stat profile. Agility, Stamina, 2 sockets, Attack Power, Critical Strike, and Armor Penetration. And the only difference is, the Taldaram Soft Slippers just has a little bit less of each of those stats. Well, except for the armor penetration. It actually has 6 more of that, but for the most part, just less stats. For rings, the Frostbrood Sapphire Ring might be kind of hard to get, as a lot of people want those armor penetration items. The alternative from 10-man would be the Saurfang's Cold Forged Band, which is another great agility and armor penetration ring for a rogue. However, if you could get your hands on the Band of the Bone Colossus from 25-man Lord Marrowgar Heroic, that is also a good alternative that would fit in between these two, and despite not having armor penetration, is a great option for a combat rogue. For the weapons, we're getting rid of the 25-man Heroic Lich King weapons. Fallen Rush might be a little bit unreasonable for most people, but the Windrunner's Heartseeker from 10-man Heroic Lich King certainly much more obtainable. A lot of the same stats, just a little bit less of each of them. And for weapons, same story. We're going with something a bit more reasonable to obtain. The Blood Venom Blade from Saurfang in 25-man. Now, Saurfang isn't the easiest of bosses, but it's certainly no Heroic Lich King, and Blood Venom Blade is a pretty good option for a combat rogue. Now, here's your top 10 weapon combinations as a combat rogue. At the top, we have Havoc's Call, Blade of Lordaeron Kings, and the Scourgeburn War Axe from the Gunship. Scourgeburn War Axe should be a pretty easy pickup, as pretty much no other class wants a fast axe weapon, so this should be an easy grab for any rogue. Without Havoc's Call, Blood Venom Blade is your second best main hand. Then we go to a couple different combinations of Havoc's Call plus other offhands, and then our next major weapon combination is the Black Bruise fist weapon paired with Lungbreaker, and you'd take the close quarters combat talent setup if you were going to use this weapon setup, instead of the normal hack and slash that goes with your axes and swords. And that's all I've got to say about combat rogue gearing in Phase 4 of Wrath of the Lich King Classic, the Icecrown Citadel raid. Now, if that's not enough for you, if you need more information, be sure to join the Simonized Show Discord. There's charts of in-depth item comparison, different items, slot by slot, way more in-depth than this video went, spreadsheets and simulators to check out your unique gear situation, information about talent specializations, boss strategy, tips and tricks, everything you could want for Wrath of the Lich King Classic. And also, remember to check out Simonized Show TV here on YouTube. It's my VODs, clips, and highlights channel. You can see all of my PTR raids, and once the raid goes live, there'll be my live raids on there too. So if you want the full unedited Simonized Show experience, that's where you gotta go. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was educational for you, and I hope you have fun in Icecrown Citadel.